There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on the Evil FB Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, all that good stuff. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNews, Roy Blicker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face. Of course, we're joined the mighty Met KMG, 1490 AM, as we usually do at the bottom of the hour. We'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on today, as we usually do. On a Monday, lots of course, the weekend is jam-packed through that. Both the IndyCar race and the Nasty Car race were actually very good over the weekend. We're going to give you that here in a second. The flip of the week was at Reutzel or Swanson. Of course, we'll cover the California elections, which voting will pretty much end tomorrow at 9 o'clock, despite the cheat, which we all know is coming. We get to all the latest renditions on that, but as we say, flip of the week. Jake Swanson at Knoxville, our own SoCal Jake Swanson, who moved back to Indiana to have a better chance to race. There's the crew.
Right front missing from the 5T. We'll see if we have a replay here on the Flow Racing on Amazon Prime broadcast.
There he is.
And here we go, working into turn 3 in the right front. Just leaves.
Was reported a broken spindle from Jake Swanson at that terrible crash there at Knoxville. It appears he didn't have any serious injuries coming across to that. Let's give her another shot on the replay as we see him coming out of turn 2. Boom, man, spindle breaks, equipment failure. Tough luck at the famed Knoxville Raceway on Hall of Fame night. The other one that went off was Aaron Reutzel, who was not real happy about it. Review. Oh, we thought it was a here we go.
Thorson might have a shot at this thing. He looks to the inside. Here's a slider for second to get together. Thorson and Reutzel. Reutzel's upside down. The points leader comes to a stop on the front straightaway. A huge, huge moment in turn 4. Boy, here.
Yes, you see him coming down the back straightaway. Tanner Thorson, I believe, looks like he just drives her right into Aaron Reutzel, who was definitely not happy at all about that situation, and rightfully so. That would just look like a plain slam job coming across there, as you see. Took to the slide job, boom, nailed him. There's the slide job gone wrong. It's always been my contention, the guy on the inside or the guy doing the sliding is responsible. You're responsible if you're trying to pass somebody to clear him. So, well, maybe we should get back to settling some of these things, as they say, the old-fashioned way. Maybe a lot of this rough driving would go by the wayside. But that's the 2 flips of the week. On top of that, the NASCAR race was absolutely fabulous. I mean, 3 of them coming down. Chris Bell shot the gap. Looked like he was going to lead coming down the back straightaway, but Denny Hamlin came through and won. On that, Alex Palou won the IndyCar race in Detroit after the Indy 500. That was a pretty competitive race, too. Graham Rahal got on the podium, which maybe he's making a comeback since he hasn't won anything in 8-9 years. Maybe he'll finally get it in victory lane. But that's it for the weekend racing report. Of course, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, technically, voting ends. Now, the thing of it is, if you're in line at one of the in-person voting places, I don't know, I guess at a drop box, if it's still there, I guess you can still dump the ballot in. Make sure you get it in the post office. Your last shot's tomorrow, but I would walk it in and have them postmark it, because it has to have today's or tomorrow's postmark on it to be counted. Technically, you can tell we don't have a lot of confidence in that. But This is the last shot. And we're going to get into some of the philosophies and things that have gone on. Here's the latest in the vote stats from PDI. 17% of the vote in. Out of 23 million plus ballots mailed, only 3.8 have been returned. They just had LA County dumps, so there is a plus 15 Democrat Republican, which is still 12 points ahead as far as the split between Democrats and Republicans from the 22 primary. As you see, older voters and white voters are way ahead of the low turnout curve on this election. Comparable, and we're still behind. If you see the comps, we're still over 1% behind where we were at the 22 primaries last year, 17 to 18% turnout. And we only got 33% turnout in 22 primaries. So we're on a pace to have less than 33% turnout. We shall see if there's a late Democratic surge. It doesn't look like it's coming. But, hey, we'll get some more updates. Again, we had an LA County dump, which they're only at 14%. They're lagging. And typically, we have 50%. We have 50% of the vote in. Then you get the tallies of the game day vote. So typically by the end of tomorrow night or very early Wednesday morning, you should have about 60% of the vote. Maybe a little bit more since people are coming in late and this is a primary. But by tomorrow night, we should have, when we come back on Wednesday, we should know about where 60% of the vote is. About 40% will be counted in the next 30 days, which is a crock, but that's a story, again, that will repeat as that process plays out. You can see that, again, we're behind ballot history, whether it's early voters, late voters, and between voters, it's all down comparatively almost across the board from the primary 2022. So we have that part. I'm going to say this, the polls, you can pick a poll and find one that's going to tell you pretty much what you want to hear. You want to think it's Democrat going to be Steyer versus Baccaria, Hilton versus Steyer, Steyer versus Baccaria, which seem to be at this point probably the three most likely scenarios, since Republicans have seemed to want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, there's a couple of bright spots in here. Though we still, top two in June may still win in a couple shots in the down ticket races, but we'll get into that in a minute. This one, and not that I agree with her too, but I think Gloria Romero and Florina Ma will probably be the top two coming out for lieutenant governor on that. In a very, let's say, the votes, you talk about, now if we'd had this kind of split, which we had, top two in June would be very likely. But again, Republicans had to throw things right down the old crapper. We get into this and much, much more on this fabulous Monday edition of IA Newswire. So, I know a lot of us have been taking flack, and I'm still, well, I've casted my vote Saturday for Chad Bianco for governor. thanks to the Pope, who right next door had a polling station open. There it is right here. If you're Cottonwood in Paris, if you're here, they have till a polling station open. You can come in and vote. A Saturday, rolled right in. Nobody was there. So I got in and out in probably 5 minutes tops. But I know a lot of people are taking a lot of flack and Steve Hilton supporters and, oh, Chad's got to quit. You only had one chance to win this, and that was here. I don't regret. I will do it again. I would vote 3 times right now for Chad. No. Because the only shot we had to get a center-right, freedom and liberty type governor was have Steve and Chad on the top 2, which they gave us the whole enchilada to do. First, I told everybody, don't jump on Swalwell when the dam broke. We needed Swalwell to stay in the race. The overall good, don't let the perfect get in the way of the greater good. The overall good would have been make them eat Swalwell. No, the center right, oh, he just jumped all over him. Then all of a sudden, Javier Baccaria jumps from nothing, which we ran the deal. Gray Davis told everybody didn't get out. The great Ashley Zavala had Rusty Hicks on, head of the Democratic Party, who was telling everybody, oh, all these guys like Baccaria had to get out. Well, if they'd have followed his advice, Baccaria wouldn't have been in. Or would have had to jump back in, and it'd have been a complete mess. We still might have had a chance. Not saying that. The strategy was right. They gave us the opportunity to do it. Again, if we don't take that opportunity to win, you're going to go down into defeat. Here's the latest poll coming out. Steyer 55, Hilton 34. Baccaria 58, Hilton 35. Which is if it's Steve versus any Democrat, it's going to be 60-40 Democrat, Steve Hilton 40 if you're lucky. Because you did not want to win. And that's a plain fact. No excuses. No, could have done that. No, you did not want to win. When it was given to you on a silver platter, you said, oh, I'm not going to take it. The vast majority of the people. Again, you can't back up the clock. It is what it is. You know, we'll work on the Ed Delgados for state assemblies, and however the down ticket races and local races will all be coming up in November. But look, Lonnie Chen ran for controller, which Herb Morgan, which has an even better sign. Lonnie Chen was endorsed by just about every newspaper, pundit, right and left, anything else. As a Republican, he only got 44%. That's what the establishment trying to help him. The tech bros were behind him. 44%. Steve Hilton's not going to bust those numbers. And I caution all you, though, Baccaria is going to get indicted, and you probably should, over the McCluskey, Dana the Hammer Williamson, $250,000 payoff out of the Baccaria campaign account. I caution you, all you got to look to is Donald J. Trump and Mar-a-Lago, and them raiding Melania's panty drawer. Trump was still in the lead, but DeSantis had a shot at getting the nomination up till that day they arrested Donald J. Trump, and it was over. then the assassination attempt and everything else. That was the height of Ron DeSantis right there, was when they arrested Trump in Mar-a-Lago. And they'll do the same thing. If the Trump administration indicts Baccaria, it's going to be, the Trump, evil Trump, got to vote against Trump. This will be Prop 50 ran all over again. Well, we know that it's a gerrymander and we know we shouldn't do it, but we hate Trump. We're going to vote for it anyway. So even if the betting markets are right, there's still a 5% chance Chad gets in the top two. But you don't give up on the winning strategy. You don't play a win to lose, because ultimately you lose. And nobody remembers who finished in second place in racing, in politics, and anything else. Bet you more people could tell you Felix Rosenquist won the Indy 500 a week and a day ago versus who finished second. Now, if you're a racing geek like me, you know it's David Malukas. But I bet you 1 out of 10 that could name Felix Rosenquist ran first. You maybe get 1 out of 10 after that could answer David Malukas. And the Democrats have understood this way more than the Republicans. First, you got to win. You don't win anything. You don't affect policy unless you get into office. And then you get the majority. Then you get to dictate the rules. You as the gold or the votes makes the rules. The golden rule. So again, we had the shot. We had the shot. Another one we got is, we've covered it, we'll get to it in a second, CD 48, down there, Temecula, North County, San Diego, where we could lock out the Democrats in one of the redistrict seats that'd be one off the docket. CD 48, we got a chance to lock out the Democrats. Even better. We have a chance to lock out the rats in Senate District 24. Where's Senate District 24, you may ask? Well, here's the map. The west side of Los Angeles, part of where the Palisades burned down. All the way down to the South Bay, all the way up to Thousand Oaks. Look at the list of candidates. There's what, 6? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 Democrats running. And only 2 Republicans. Rick Marshall and Krista Irwin. Rick Marshall is an intelligent guy and plays to win. Rick Marshall, since people know him and he's going to be locked in, he says, I'm asking you to vote for Christina Irwin. Because if the Democrats split up on this vote between 8 candidates, we can take a plus 24 Democrat Senate seat. Plus 24 Democrat on the west side of Los Angeles. That would fry their circuits. We need more Rick Marshalls in the Republican, center-right, freedom and liberty types that understand, first, this is how you win. And when you're given the opportunity to win, you seize the moment. CD 48, congressional district. You know, we had the Prop 50 and, oh, we all hate Trump. It was basically the old ISA district. He gave it up. Well, Jim Desmond, the San Diego County Supervisor, is running for it, and he's, well, yeah, and it's a pretty even district. It's a plus Democrat by 5, but it was one of the ones they put to competitive versus a safe Republican seat. And so they got the same thing. They got 6 or 8 Democrats running and just Jim Desmond and Kevin O'Neill. And the one poll I seen was Jim Desmond was up front by about 30%. Kevin O'Neill had like 10%, and all the Democrats were in single digits. So the same thing. If Republicans vote for Kevin O'Neill, which Desmond's locked in, late voters break for Kevin O'Neill, well, there's one off the table that Paul Mitchell and Gavin Newsom thought that they might get in the redistricting of Prop 50. You beat them at their own game, just like CD 24. And Rick Marshall says, don't vote for me. I'm in. Vote for Christina Irwin. She's the other Republican. We can lock them out of a plus 20 Democrat district. Plus 20 is what the state is. We could have done that had we had our act together. Well, we could still, it's never over till it's over. So we got, what, 26 and a half hours left to go. And I'm not giving up hope. We shall see how the game day ballot goes. But even if it can, and at this point, I would rather see Steyer versus Baccaria. Because you know what, at least Steyer will go in and chop Baccaria to the, hey, if he spent $200 million to get in the primary, what do you think he's going to spend to be governor? And most Democrats hate him, so hey, Charlie, because they know they can't control him. But they are going to line up, if it's Steyer versus Baccaria, you're going to see the rats line all up behind Baccaria because they know they can do it. And they're probably more afraid of Tom Steyer than Steve Hilton. I guarantee you they're more afraid of Tom Steyer than Steve Hilton. And this is the danger. I've said that, told Rick Perry this. You're going to rue the day you recruited all these Californians to move into Texas. But as you've seen with the Texas elections and the higher turnout, Texas is going to look, in the future, Texas is going to look more like California than California will look like Texas. Look at, they've got all the major cities. First, they started with Austin and San Antonio. Then they took over Houston. Then the Democrats took over Dallas. They're turning out the votes. Now they've got a good shot of electing a Tutti Frutti as senator from Texas. And look at the way their elections are going. This is like California. You know, the rural areas, state center-right conservative, they took over the city. Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. Irvine. And that, they took over the major population centers. And they've got a lock on California. That's what they're doing in Texas. That's why I submit to you. Texas will look a lot more like California in the future then California will look like Texas. This is the danger of not paying attention for the rest of the 49 states of what's going on in California. But I guess we got to learn the lessons the hard way. Well, as we say, after the fact is too late 98.7% of the time. Or how did this happen? It happened because most people ignored or didn't want to hear or denied what was actually happening until it was too late. And then you have vagrants in the street, $500,000, 200 square foot studio apartments, and telling you that's affordable. And telling you how great it is that 3 vagrants just drop towel and let poop run out of their rear ends while you get to watch it and your kids watch at the street corner. And we only have ourselves to blame.
All right, 30 seconds, Roy.
As Sean said, we'll be joining the Mighty at KMT.
Put you on so you can hear now, Dr. Kelly.
And we'll have Dr. Kelly coming on here in a few seconds. We'll get her thoughts on this and a few other subjects as we rock and roll with the rest of
Here we go, 10 seconds.
And roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky live guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the form of today and band. Join your vast video audience in the Evil FB Network YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire Roy Bleckert. You'll see my nice smiling, shining face. Flip of the week. Jake Swanson at Knoxville or Aaron Reutzel versus Tanner Thorson on that. Check it out. Fabulous NASCAR race. 3 coming down to the last lap, last corner in the finish. Even the Detroit Grand Prix, the IndyCar race was quite telling on that. Great racing all across the board this weekend and every weekend. And go out to your local short track. And you'll be amazed at what a great time you'll have just getting out of the house for people. Too many people are just quit just sitting there looking at your 3x5 screen. That's my advice for the day. The California election's going on. T-minus 26 and a half hours and counting till voting officially ends. We know California. Give you the rundown on that. Everything else, boys are still winning in the CIF championships in California sports. Tom Steyer and Javier Bacher are cheerleading it. They look like either one's probably going to be your next governor. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have the supreme physician, as I've determined her in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to iNewsWire with Roy.
Hey, Roy. Always good to be with you.
I said right at the end of the half hour, I said, Texas is going to look a lot more like California than California is going to look like Texas. I think if people don't see across the country, as I've said, don't let the cancer of California spread across the 49 states. This is where they test pilot all this stuff before they debate it to the rest of you. You can see it happening. They've captured the big cities in Texas just like they did 10, 20 years ago in California. You can see it rolling in New York. New York City's burying the whole state. How do you see it, Dr. Kelly?
Well, what I see, unfortunately, and we've watched this for decades, Roy, is the blight of California spreading, as you said, across all 50 states. My home state now of Colorado has fallen prey to it. Colorado, when I moved here now, almost 40 years ago, was a very, very conservative state. It's largely an agricultural ranching state. Now it's about as liberal as as you can get. It's just as bad as California, and it's really because of the overwhelming influx over the past 4 decades of people from California. They destroy their own state. They drive up the taxes. They drive out the tax base. People who have the ability to go elsewhere. They allow things like illegal immigration, indigents living on the street, everything that's been plaguing L.A. And then when it gets too much for them, they say, oh, this stinks. I don't want to be here anymore. And so they move to the next state. And then they do the same thing here. And they voted for the same failed policies in Colorado. And I've seen it happen in I was born in Ohio. It's happened in Ohio. It's going to happen in Texas. It's already happening in Texas. So they destroyed California, and then they go fleeing, but rather than seeing the evil of their ways and saying, wow, that didn't work, let's, really respect and honor the new state that we live in that has none of these problems. And instead, they vote for the same failed policies, and these states fall apart as well.
The study of human behavior is fascinating, and this is what's really perplexing is the disconnect. Do you take California? Well, they voted for 47,187 and crime went crazy. Then they voted for 36, which is supposed to peel back some of that. Yet we're going to go back and elect Baccaria, Steyer, and Florina Ma's lieutenant governor, and on and on and on down the line, and your city councils and your mayors and county supervisors. You're going to elect the same people in most cases that brought you the chaos that you said. The death penalty. We voted for Prop 66. We want them in 5 years and they're done. And we're going to elect more people not to do that. In fact, we're turning San Quentin death row into a country club for frickin' criminals. What? How do you solve this disconnect that people have between what they know they should have and what they actually go out there and do, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I think what will be very telling, Roy, is what happens in the L.A. mayoral race. It'll be interesting to see whether this really unique, over-the-top campaign that Spencer Pratt has been running, whether that has traction. Was it down to earth enough to the people? Was he mocking them enough? Was he in their face enough that they can actually say, wow, he's really got a good point, I'm not going to vote for this again? If he is not successful, and right now I understand he's the front runner, he's got like 30% in the most recent poll, if he does not break 51%, or if he doesn't do really, really well, then I think it's a lost cause, because his has been the most, truly it's been unique. He's spent a ton of money. He's really gone to the people, on their level. He's used every super creative ad campaigns. He's absolutely been out there over the top, showing it to the people. He's done talk shows up one side and down there. There's not just a bunch of typical political sound bites. If that's not successful in really getting people to see and to vote his way, then I think the state's gone. If he is successful, then I think there's really that's a harbinger of potentially good things to happen in the gubernatorial race. And I still am hoping, against all odds, that we're going to end up with Steve Hilton really pulling ahead, and potentially, I don't know if we could end up with both, with a double Republican ticket, but it would be a harbinger of good things based on how Spencer Pratt does in this race.
I'm going to be surprised if Pratt gets more than a third of the vote coming in on Tuesday. And this is what I'm saying is people in L.A., that people are voting... They're voting almost as the PPIC poll, almost 60%. Things are terrible, just paraphrasing California, on the wrong track, whatever. Yet we support Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass, or we'll vote for them. We won't vote for Spencer Pratt. We won't take the two. We won't take the top two in June. We have a chance to lock out the West Side, the West Side state Senate seat. And the guy that's leading it, Republican, there's two of them. He's saying vote for the other one, Irwin. So we could actually take a plus 25 seat. Same with CD48. We can lock them out and start turning the tracks. We have more opportunities. We might flush all three down the toilet, along with LA and everything else. I mean, if 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 you reelect people that burnt your community to the frickin' ground, I don't again, it's fascinating to see the disconnect, or what is it that's not wired right in people's brains that they can't see that, Dr. Kelly?
Well, what I've been, thinking or hoping, Roy, is that it's simply that, unfortunately, the average American it isn't necessarily very intelligent, and I was hoping that Spencer Pratt's advertising campaign, the way he positioned it, is in the kind of ads are very similar to the sort of stuff that your average American does watch every day on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and he used that style, and I was hoping that he would actually capture their attention and make a difference. If he doesn't, then, as I said, I don't know what you would do. If that didn't make a difference and he can't show people, don't you see the insanity of what you're doing, then, frankly, it's going to have to crash and burn. LA is going to go the way of Detroit. It's going to end up being a ghost city. No one will live there. There will be just homeless people on the streets. It will be a place that no one will go. And then in 50 years, it will get rebuilt.
That's why, I mean, at this point, if it's not going to be Steve and Chad at the top two, I just as soon it be Steyer and Baccaria. Let's get to burning it down. And that's the thing I was looking at too. As Spencer Pratt has ran probably one of the best local campaigns I've seen, maybe of all time. And had the issues, anybody that looks at LA, that's been down there. I haven't been down there in probably 5 or 6 years. It's only 60 miles away from here. I just refuse to go down there. I don't want to live. One, I don't want to go in that hellhole, and I don't want to take my life in my own hands going down there doing it. And if all this stuff is going on, and that isn't enough to shake people, especially in California, across the board, I guess you should just. My thought is, well, let's just burn it down to the ground, and we'll see what we're going to rebuild out of the ashes, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I think that this will be very telling based on how Spencer Pratt does. Other than that, I agree with you. Burn it down. I do go to L.A., not infrequently, for business, and it's horrifying. I won't do it without a driver. I would never drive myself there any longer. I would never dare to take my own car because I don't want it to get vandalized or stolen. So I end up, I will fly into the airport, and then I either take Ubers or get a driver if I'm going to Century City or wherever I'm going to do news media, or business meetings. But other than that, I would never go there. I certainly try to avoid going out to dinner there. I stay very much, at the hotel, and it's that kind of city now. We're just honestly, 15 years ago, it was a totally different city. It has gone so far downhill, and I'm with you. I think that otherwise we just need to burn it down, start over. The sooner you burn it down, the better, because right now it's just sort of smoldering. It needs a full-on conflagration. If we don't get somebody like Spencer Pratt in place, then we just need a full-on conflagration, let it all torch the whole darn thing, and start over.
One person I think that maybe help us do it is part of the Biden crime family, Jill Biden, on her little tour she's doing right now of the two things. And I mean, obviously they know they got screwed over the Kamala deal of that. And now she's trying, she's trying to point out, or I think it's going to come out, a lot of the skullduggery is in. And now, but her trying to say, Well, during the disastrous debate, you thought your husband was having a stroke and you were doing nothing about it? You were just going to sit there and watch him die? Or he has stage 4 prostate cancer while he was president with some of the best medical care in the world, and no, it went by everybody. You got better odds of hitting the lottery twice and surviving getting struck by lightning than that happening, Dr. Kelly. This stuff is the bizarre of it all. The bizarro world we're living in is fascinating, Dr. Kelly.
I agree with you, and I will tell you right now, Jill Biden is so disingenuous. She's power hungry. She wanted her husband to stay president because she liked being in the limelight. She liked all of the perks that come with living in the White House and being the first lady. She also liked the ability to direct the auto pen, and ultimately resulted in the pardon of Hunter Biden. You will recall that Joe Biden promised he was not going to pardon Hunter, and then lo and behold, he does, and that is part of the reason that Jill Biden was absolutely adamant that her husband stay in the White House. She didn't care if he was having a full-on stroke on national television. She didn't care, and she just came out today or yesterday and said, oh my gosh, Joe's prostate cancer is metastatic, as if this is news. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer at the time of his original diagnosis. By definition, Roy, stage 4 prostate cancer, stage 4 cancer is already metastatic. He was, at the time of his diagnosis, that cancer was already metastatic. How that happens to a sitting president who is supposedly getting regular medical care and physical exams is beyond me. So clearly somebody wasn't doing his or her job with regard to the exams, or they were keeping it quiet. They knew that he had prostate cancer, and they weren't going to let anybody know and wait until after he was out of office and then all of a sudden say, oh, my gosh, he's got stage 4 prostate cancer. The whole thing is such a sham. They allowed him to stay in place despite the fact that he had overwhelming evidence of having Parkinsonian dementia, something that I called prior to the 2024 election. I said before then that he is 2020. I said he is, he's demented. This is somebody who has already got Parkinsonian dementia, and it's very, very clear. He had every single sign of it. So, I find every single thing that Joe Biden says to be quite disingenuous. This book tour is a joke, but she just loves the limelight, and she isn't going to step down anytime soon.
The largest human cancer study of ivermectin and benbenzol was had. Tell us the results, Dr. Kelly.
Yes, really interesting study. This was a prospective observational study, and by that what I mean is it was not a controlled study. So we acknowledge, I am being one of the authors of this study, we acknowledge that there are things that weren't controlled for. In other words, patients had different diets, they had different exercise levels, and they may have been participating in other treatments for their cancers. All that said, these are people, it was 200 people who took 6 months of ivermectin and mebendazole, two very well-known FDA-approved drugs that were developed as anti-parasitic drugs, drugs to treat parasites, worms, scabies, those sorts of things, but have profound mechanisms of action against cancer. So these patients took this combination for 6 months, and we followed up with them to find out what, if anything, had happened to their cancers. And over 84.5% of the people had a positive result. 48, almost 49% of them had either regression of their tumor or complete absence, no evidence of disease at all. Their cancer was gone in 6 months. Another 36% had their cancer not progress. In other words, over 6 months, it didn't get any big, didn't get smaller, but it also didn't get any bigger. And only 15% had their cancer progress. So although this was an observational study, as I said, not a randomized control trial, the results are certainly compelling, and it should absolutely motivate someone to spend a lot of money, time, and resources into a large randomized control trial, because if there's something as simple, as inexpensive, as well tolerated as these two drugs that could actually cure cancer, that would be remarkable. And I will tell you, there are study after study after study showing that this may be the case. The anecdotes, it's hard to call them anecdotes anymore because they are in the tens of thousands of patients who are reporting that they took this combination of drugs for cancer and either had regression or complete remission and cure of their cancer without doing chemotherapy at all. It's really quite remarkable. And the great thing is that unlike chemotherapy, these two drugs don't destroy your immune system. They don't cause neuropathy and heart damage and hair loss and all of the other things that standard traditional chemotherapy does. So it's certainly very exciting, compelling data, and we are hoping for a large trial that will come.
Maybe this is the one good thing that came out of the COVID con, because they were like, we went through the whole deal, ivermectin's horse medicine, it's going to kill you, all this other bull crap. When and everybody now that was even saying, or pretty much, most people that were saying that are acknowledging that it was. This is going to, again, like they say, the difference between a conspiracy and the facts is 6 months. And this is going to blow apart a lot of this that said, you can't, nothing like that can happen. The pharmaceutical industry and the cancer and the doctor and the hospital industry say, they've had these, you got to have $1 million treatments or break you at the end of your life. That we're finding out more and more each day. Not only is that not the case, but that we've been sold the biggest con the last 20, 30, 40 years, maybe in the entire human history, Dr. Kelly.
I agree 100%, because look, if you take just what I'm talking about with regard to ivermectin and mebendazole and their potential efficacy against cancer, this data, it turns out, this information, Roy, has been known for decades. Ivermectin has been used in the veterinary world to treat cancer for decades. Johns Hopkins University filed a patent on mebendazole for the treatment of brain cancer in 2010. Okay? 16 years ago, Johns Hopkins University knew that mebendazole treated brain cancer, so much so that they filed a patent against it for it. Why hasn't anybody heard about this? Why isn't it in the mainstream? Why is everybody just getting radiation and chemotherapy for these cancers and not taking these super safe, super well-tolerated drugs? And I'll tell you why. It's because they're inexpensive and nobody can make a lot of money on it. And so I think it really has been a racket. The data has been suppressed. It certainly is what happened during COVID. You watched it happen. We knew that ivermectin, for example, like hydroxychloroquine, had profound efficacy against COVID, yet we were not allowed to say that. You were, labeled a heretic, derided, ridiculed, and had risk of losing your medical license if you said so. And only now, all of these years later, the FDA says, probably ivermectin actually does work against COVID. Yeah, who knew? But all of these people suffered and were not allowed to take it, instead had Paxlovid and remdesivir shoved down their throats, to their great demise. And instead, I will tell you right now, the idea of repurposed medications for things like cancer, for viruses, those sorts of things, that really, in my mind, is the future of medicine. We don't necessarily need a brand new medication for every single thing that comes along. A lot of these medications have multiple mechanisms of action. They can be an antiparasitic and have antiviral properties, and it turns out have anti-cancer properties, and that's what we're looking into.
Got a couple minutes left. Anything else our audience should know?
I know. I think just keep your eye open. I think the fervor has died down a little bit in the last couple of days with regard to Ebola, as well it should, by the way. Ebola does not pose a risk to the vast majority of people unless you happen to be vacationing in Uganda or going on your honeymoon to the Congo, and plan to commune with people who are ill with Ebola. These are not, like hantavirus, Ebola is not a respiratory virus. It is not spread person to person, other than by direct contact with bodily fluids in the case of Ebola. Hantavirus isn't spread person to person at all. It requires you to inhale the aerosolized feces or urine of an infected rodent. So both hantavirus and Ebola, while both can be very serious, do not pose a risk to the vast majority of people. And if we see something other than that start to happen, then I can pretty much guarantee you these have been manipulated viruses and they're not naturally occurring. Thus far, we have zero evidence of that.
Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Roy. Talk soon.
Dr. Kelly, as we say, saying it only as she can. Oh, man. Here we go again. There's a 80-20 issue.
You're going back home for the games?
And the absolute disconnect again is fascinating. The Harupa Valley boy, again, just got 2 more state titles at the CIF finals. Tom Steyer and Javier Baccaria are both supporting this. When 80% of the country and California are saying, no way, Jose. No boys and girls sports, or locker rooms, or bathrooms, or any other private places. Not on the track field, not on the football field. Swimming. Like buffoon baths, yet the vast majority of Californians are going to vote for people who are against, not against, their fundamental beliefs are fundamental rights and wrongs. The only way I can explain it is Hegelism. Create a crisis where one doesn't exist and then walk in with a solution. And the Stockholm Syndrome. You get to love your captor who's beating the crap out of you, torturing you, enslaving you because you think that's the only way you can survive. That's the only way this makes any sense, because why would you vote and act against your own self-interest? Your family's self-interest, your children's future, your community's and country's future. It's the only way I can make sense of it. I don't know. 26 hours, we'll have the elections over. We'll give you the shot about it tomorrow. As we usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours wide. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
Yeah, we will see. I'm still not very hopeful here. I think you're going to see a lot more burning ballot boxes here in the next day or so.
Oh, no doubt.
That's I think that's Newsom's breaking glass moment as the burning ballot boxes.
Yeah, notice he didn't say what it was.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Don't want to give you the ending of the movie before it's done, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Roy. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.
Bye.
Oh,